Hello and welcome back to Bookmark Chronicles. Ignore the sirens, just pretend they're not there. I am here to do my second quarter series check-in. So I'll go through all of the series that I have started, completed, DNF'd, and am still in the middle of since my last one, which was at the end of March. So we're gonna start with series that I have caught up on. So technically this first one is not listed anywhere as a series, but it is interconnected standalone. So to me, that's a series. I don't know what it's called, but the first book is called Take a Chance. The second one is So This Is Love. And the two female main characters in this are friends. And in this second one, I really liked it. We're following a main character who has a chance run-in with this celebrity, and then they end up meeting again years later, and he is really interested in getting to know her, and she's like, I don't do public limelight and all of that, and so she tries to keep avoiding him, and they keep running into each other and she can't help it. I loved Take a Chance. I rated it 5 stars. I did not love this one as much, but I am still willing to read more by this author. There are a couple other friends in the group that I'm hoping get their own books, and so hopefully maybe we get something else from her next year. Next is The Hunger Games. I read Sunrise on the Reaping and I really enjoyed it more than I was expecting to. I guess I wasn't expecting to enjoy it because I didn't like the prequel about President Snow. I feel like that was completely unnecessary, but this one is Haymitch's Games, and we know that he won a quarter quell, so I really enjoyed it. If you are a fan of that original trilogy, if you are a fan of the movies, then I definitely think that you will like this one. And from my understanding, the movie will be coming out in 2026, so I will definitely be going to see that. Next is the Men of Nirvana series by Phoenix Collins. This includes Stroke of Luck and Rose in Bloom. I had an arc of both of these, rated both of them 5 stars. Rose in Bloom is my first 5-star read of the year, although I did have a 4.75 that I'll talk about. Loved it. Some notes, but not enough to make me dislike it overall. So in that first book, we're following Lucky and Carter. Carter is a Harrington and they own this club called Nirvana. Lucky works at the club. And then in Rose and Bloom, we are following Victor Harrington, who is Carter's father, and another employee of Nirvana, Rosie, who we met in the first book. I loved it so much. It's so good. It's an age gap billionaire romance, and it actually has accidental pregnancy, which is not a trope that I like, but that did not deter me from enjoying the book at all. So definitely recommend. I've told many people to read Stroke of Luck, and a lot of y'all didn't listen to me, and so I'm just waiting for y'all to finally get on the bandwagon and come back and tell me about it. So I need you to do that. Then Mafia Misfits. Y'all know how much I love this series. This is Asia Monique's Black Mafia romance series, and this is book 7, Sinful King. I will say I didn't love this book as much as I have enjoyed others in the series. I rated this one 3.75 stars, which is the lowest that I've rated anything in this series, but it is now going to be an 8-book series instead of 10, and with that many books, I'm bound to dislike something, right? I mean, I still enjoyed being in the world, I enjoyed the characters, but in this one, it's not even miscommunication, it's just like they are purposely keeping things from each other, and the other person is aware that they're keeping something from each other, but they're just like, I can't tell you yet, I gotta finish some things before I can tell you. And I'm just like, literally just work together. Like, why are we doing this? So enjoyed it, but definitely not my favorite. I think the final book is supposed to be coming out at the end of this year, actually. I feel like I read that somewhere. I think December is the goal, but we'll see. I mean, I still love the series regardless. I will still reread other books in the series, so still a fun time, and I still recommend it. If you've not read this yet, I don't know what you're doing. I've been talking about this for what, like 3 years now? Get on it. Moving on to series that I'm still in the middle of, and really it's just one, Lost and Found by Natasha Bishop. I read the second book that is currently out, Where We Found Our Heart, and I loved it. This was the 4.75 that I read, and again, it's accidental pregnancy, which is crazy to me. And the only reason that I didn't give this a full 5 stars is because the male main character fucked up in a way that was completely avoidable, and Like the actions leading up to it, everything's fine, and then he just makes little decisions that end up having a huge impact on his relationship later on. And it was literally like, you should have done this, should have done this, shouldn't have done that, but instead you made the situation much more complicated than it needed to be, and for what? Still really enjoyed it though, would definitely recommend. I'm really excited to read the next book, which I'm hoping to do soon. And in this one, it was like supposed to be a one-night stand, best friend's brother type thing, but she got pregnant. So now onto series that I have completed. First is Friends and Lovers by Christina C. Jones. As many of you know, I am working through her backlist. Ignore that. As many of you know, I'm working through her backlist, and so this was a duology that included Finding Forever and Chasing Commitment. Not a huge fan. I won't talk too much about it because it will be in my next CCJ vlog, which should be coming out soon. But I think that if you're gonna read anything by CCJ, this one is not high on my list for recommending. So there's also cheating in both of these books, and I don't like that. So definitely not one that I would really recommend, but she has so much. There's much better things in there. Next, I'm counting The Queen's World by L.R. Jackson as complete. This includes The Accidental Queen and The Defiant Queen. I read The Accidental Queen when it first came out a few years ago, and I loved it. Did not love The Defiant Queen as much for a lot of reasons, and while I am marking it as completed, technically I DNF'd at 80% and skimmed to see what happened at the end, and honestly, I should have DNF'd sooner. That is genuinely just how I feel about that. I didn't like the ending, I didn't like the direction that it went in, and I feel like a lot of the conflicts were completely unfucking necessary, and y'all know how I feel about unnecessary conflict. That just doesn't work for me. So I don't know if there's supposed to be more in this series. If there is, I would definitely read it. This one just was not my favorite, but I still think that everyone should read The Accidental Queen. Then we have The Five Queendoms by G.R. McAllister. I reread both Scorpica and Arca this year to get ready for Cestia, which I had an arc of. This is a series that I would recommend to people who enjoy fantasy. We're following various people throughout the Five Queendoms as they're experiencing the drought of girls, meaning that girls are not being born. And that makes it really difficult for people who lead queendoms when you don't have any future queens. I'm planning to do a dedicated series review, so I won't go on too much, but Scorpica, that first book, 4.75 stars. I really loved it. I reread Arca this year and actually rated it higher than I did the first time around, and then Cestia got a higher rating that was in between Scorpica and Arca, so definitely would recommend the series overall for anyone who's a fan of fantasy. Then I read the If You Can series by Christina C. Jones. This is her romantic suspense trilogy, and it kind of all reads like one big story, even though we might focus on certain characters at certain points in time. I rated all three of these 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I do have a spoiler-free series review of that, so I will have that linked for you. Definitely recommend if you are a fan of romantic suspense. In that first book, we're following Naomi and Marcus. Naomi is a thief. Marcus is an FBI agent trying to catch her, and the way their story ends up is just kind of tragic, but also kind of funny, and of course it ends in a happily ever after, which is all that matters. While I am still reading the final book in the series, I am going to mark Legends of the First Empire by Michael J. Sullivan as complete. I am participating in Deshauna's World of Elon read-along, and this was the first series that we started with, so we've been reading these since January. I would say, probably a third of the way through the final book right now, and we'll definitely be completing it soon. I really enjoy the series. I don't enjoy it more than Right Year Revelations, but it is a close second so far, and I'm really having a good time with it. I never know how to explain what this is about because we're following so many different characters, we're going into all these different places, we're doing all these things, but it is a really good series. I didn't love book 4 as much as the others, but otherwise highly recommend if you're a fan of high fantasy, especially if you have enjoyed other work by Michael J. Sullivan. And lastly, we have series that I have DNF'd. The first one is You by Caroline Kepnes. With the final season of the Netflix series coming out, I wanted to give the books a try because I had the first one. I didn't get far. Something about reading from Joe's perspective in the book is a million times worse than watching Penn Badgley on a screen. It's creepier and more delusional in a way, and I just couldn't do it. I didn't like it at all. Then I am finally DNFing Tita Rosie's Kitchen Cozy Mystery series. The first book is Arsenic and Adobo, which I loved. I rated it very highly, 4.5 maybe. And I have been buddy reading the rest of the series with Robin. With this fifth book, Guilt and Ginatan, Robin and I started to buddy read it. She DNF'd, I finished it, and finally decided to DNF the series. Usually Leela is not annoying to me, but in this one in particular, I could not fucking stand her. I just don't think it's worth it. The series was originally supposed to be a trilogy, and it should have stayed that way. So then I have two other series in which I read the first book of both and DNF'd both. I can't tell you what they are because they are for a project that I'm finishing up, and so hopefully that video will be coming out soon-ish, maybe in a month or so. Yeah, I tried. I really did. Just know that I tried, okay? And lastly, we have The Last Magician. The group chat decided to do a group buddy read, and while I enjoyed this first book, I rated it 4.5 stars. I decided that I will not be continuing the series because why are there 3 more books and all of them are over 700 pages? I can guarantee that this series don't need to be that long. I promise. I really, really do. Like I said, it was a fun time. I really didn't think that I was going to complete the first book. I had said that up front. I was like, I'll join the buddy read, but I'm probably gonna DNF. I was actually really intrigued. I was very pulled in. It was also at a time where work was super busy and I was just coming off of that. And so I was on a plane a lot. And so I was just listening to the audiobook. And then when I got home, I had maybe like 25% left and I was like actively engaged and like interested in what was happening. So I'm surprised, but it was a good time. I would definitely recommend that though if you like time travel. And there was a plot twist that I predicted. And so I asked, I was like, is this thing? And someone was like, I can't tell you. And I was like, will I find out by the end of the book? And they were like, yes. And I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna finish it right now. And I did. And I was glad to know that my prediction was correct. And yeah, it was a really good time. I really did enjoy that book. I enjoyed the relationships between all the characters, the surprises, the world, which is like, it's set in New York, but then she goes back in time because she has to do something. But it was really good. I had a really good time with that, surprisingly. But yeah, I'm not finishing that series. I'm not reading an additional 2,100 pages. I'm not doing it. So that is all the progress that I've currently made in all the series that I've started and need to finish and whatever. At some point, I need to go back to look at other videos that I've done to check in on my series and see where I need to like actually start closing some loops. I'll do that one day, not today. But let me know if you've read any of these, if they're on your TBR, and let me know how you're doing on your series for 2025. Otherwise, that's all I have for you today, and I'll see you in the next video.